Hey everyone, welcome to Reddit Readout. Today we are checking out Confession. Story 1. I got mad at my gym and left with a 45 pounds weight plate. I was mad at the way they handled a situation with me regarding a repair of a specific machine. I felt insulted, so one day, I brought my large gym bag, walked in, went to a deep corner and put a 45 pounds plate in my bag. Nothing ever came of it and I still attend my gym. Edit * to clarify, our gym owner has a history of acting rude towards its customers and other members, trying to hit that they are weak and other negative ideas. Anyway, it is not something I am proud of. I don't even want the weight plate and I want to bring it back. I was just angry. Story 2. I was a serial arsonist when I was a child, nobody knows. As a young boy I often was left unsupervised and left to my own devices. It was a different time then. I often would travel all across town at the age of 5 on my bike. I still had training wheels on my bike when I started fucking off all over town. My dad chained my bike to a tree once but I just walked instead. He grounded me but I'd wake up early in the morning and just leave the house. I was out of control, lol. I would go to the shipyard and crawl under the fence and climb the ladders, go out at the end of the wharf and climb underneath looking for crabs and starfish. One time I saw a lobster and tried to catch it and almost drown. Looking back, I'm surprised I am still alive. I found this old abandoned building beside the shipyard all boarded up. There was a small hole for me to climb in and so I went inside. It was dark but there was enough natural daylight creeping through the windows to see. Upon looking around and investigating all of the cool stuff I found in there, I found 3 things worth noting. A pack of matches, a $5 bill, and a coffee cup that, believe it or not, I still have to this day, lol. Anyway, the building had a bunch of old paperwork packed in banker boxes. I lit a match and lit the place up just so I could watch. After the fire got out of control I managed to escape unharmed. I walked across the street, bought as many 1-cent candy as I could get at the local convenience store and went back and sat down on a railway tie and watched as the building burnt to the ground and the firefighters tried putting it out. No one ever questioned me. Since then up until I was a teenager, I set a few buildings ablaze not realizing the danger or the impact my actions caused. I've never been caught or suspected of doing it. After I reached my teens I guess common sense kicked in and I stopped, lol. Story 3. I tricked restaurants into serving me alcohol underage for 3 years. In college, whenever my friends and I went out to eat, I would find a table where some people just left and grab an empty pint glass, then go up to the bar and ask for another. To make sure I got a new glass I'd smudge some ketchup in the side. I did this hundreds of times over my underage years and not once did it ever fail me. Once I had the bartender served me, the waiter never bothered asking for an ID. Story 4. I stole a book in 7th grade and have no regrets in doing so. I never brought my own book for independent reading time. So I'd borrow a book from the teacher's bookshelf and there was so many books that was better than the ones I had at home. There was a book I couldn't get enough of and it was close to the end of the school year. I was worried that I wouldn't finish it, so I put it in my backpack and pretended that I didn't have it or something. The teacher kept telling the whole class to return any book we may have borrowed from her and I'd still pretend that I forgot or didn't have the book. I have no regrets, lol. That book was so good. Story 5. When I was a kid I broke an expensive vase in a department store. It was a big fancy vase too. I remember my mother remarking about how her children would never do such a thing while we were in line to pay. She has never found out and will never find out the truth of that day. I feel bad for the store staff to this day because now I realized that they will have to pay for it if no one's caught of the crime. I'm sorry to both my mother and the staff. Story 6. I scammed my friend's family and co-workers to get money for drugs. In the deep days of my addiction, I did a lot of scamming. That included over-exaggerating my abusive relationship I got out of, posted what he did, pretended to be in the hospital and my family posted it to raise money. I also owe many people from my graduated HS class, for emergencies that I made up. I saw a second cousin for the first time in many years, at a family wedding, and asked for car bill money and spent the $350 on drugs. I took advantage of an older man who hit on me while I did pest treatment at his house. BC I told him I would tell his wife, that was there when he did it, if he didn't pay me. A co-worker from the same job, was a guy who was my dad's age, and took me under his wing. I came up with a story, and he gave me $200 he didn't have. I regret everything I did to get money for drugs. That wasn't even the start of it. I know I'm basically unable to go to any high school reunions now BC of how bad it was and how many people I screwed over. Story 7. I just sold my car and didn't disclose all its issues. I just sold my 15-year-old car with 250,000 miles to a young-ish adult. They seemed somewhat knowledgeable about cars and checked most of things I was expecting. We even test drove it for a few minutes and it drove fine. I was upfront about a couple minor issues, moonroof out of alignment, oil pan needs a new gasket, but there is definitely a larger problem which is why I decided to sell. I'm not a mechanic and I never bothered to have it checked, but if I had to guess, it's the transmission. I believe in karma and I'm sure that bus will find me eventually. Story 8. I, technically, stole a car then went on a 10-minute joyride with a friend of mine. TLDR, I was sleeping over at a friend of mine's and stole my family's third car and was driving recklessly in a residential neighborhood. Backstory, I'm 15, I have taken driver's ed, just haven't taken the permit test yet. I know how to drive and have driven before in a parking lot. We are currently living in a rental house because our house is getting a remodel. We have 3 cars but we only have 2 at the rental. We left the Jeep, the car I stole, at the house that we own. Story, I was sleeping over at my friend's house. He's a neighbor of my actual house. We were bored at 2 a.m. and started walking around. We were climbing on top of the school across the street and then we were walking back to his house. When I asked if he wanted to go for a ride in the Jeep, he said yes, so we went into my actual house while all the rest of my family was sleeping at the rental house. Then we got a piece of painter's tape and put it over the Ring doorbell and then I grabbed the keys and we hopped in the Jeep. I took the handbrake off, then put it in reverse, then backed up a little, then put it into first, then pulled out. We proceeded to go on like a 10-minute joyride which involved me going 40 mph down residential streets and main downshifting for no reason except because I could. We turned back onto the street I live on. Then when we were like 3 or 4 houses down, I took my foot off the gas and pushed in the clutch, then shut off the engine and proceeded to coast into the parking spot. Afterwards I had a ton of adrenaline pumping. Then when I really thought about it, I realized how lucky I was that I didn't hit anyone or anything. Story 9. I've committed time theft for months at my current job. I'm a paramedic working for an IFT company. We have to complete a patient care report for every transport we do, and for some older people, they take a while to do them, and if you aren't done by the time we get back to our station, you have to stay behind and do them. Most people stay in the ambulance while doing so. I'm very fast, so when we get back to the station, I'm ready to leave. We just got our yearly raises this past June. This is our total raise. Mine was 2.9%. The highest you could get is 3.3%. It's based on a supervisor's assessment of you, and my direct supervisor was on vacation, so the guy who hates me evaluated me. Considering inflation over the last year, going from $17 to $17.49 was not a raise. I realized that since a lot of people hang back anyway, I could take a nap for an hour and get a real raise. So, every day for months, I take a nap for 1 to 1.5 hours and then clock out. My paycheck doesn't look much higher, but I'm keeping up with inflation now. Story 10. I had posted a fake story about a person resulting in her becoming unemployed. I guess the way I messed up a person's life is when I was 19, I posted an article about another woman who I had been in a petty Facebook argument with on a gossip website, calling her a prostitute and saying she works on the street as a side job, even going as far as saying the baby she was pregnant with was a local drug dealer's and not her husband's. It's still up to date and now she's forced to be a stay-at-home mom with 2 kids during an inflated economy because she can't find work due to my article being the first thing that comes up when you Google her name. I know this because she messaged me later telling me that she's been denied work because of this. Her husband has to support the 2 of them as well as 2 small children on a single income. The admins of the website won't allow it to get taken down either. What's worse is that the baby is one day going to see the article when she looks up her mom's name. I'm not proud of this and I definitely wouldn't have done it today. It's a lesson to never post when angry. Sometimes you can't take this stuff back. Story 11. I used to frequently abuse my younger brother who was half my age. I used to abuse my younger brother. I was in my early teens, he was around half my age, maybe 6 or 7. I used to hit him a lot. I remember one instance especially, when it was just my younger brother and I at home. I had paused my game on the family computer and left for the restroom. When I returned, my brother was curiously messing around with the computer and somehow he had let my in-game character die. This enraged me. I grabbed his arm and threw him to the ground, and kept kicking him. I still remember seeing the fear in his eyes when I grabbed him with all my strength. As I was kicking him wherever I could, I heard the front door open, and heard my mother, so I grabbed his arm again, pulled him up and while strengthening my grip told him to shut the fuck about this, or I'll do him worse next time. He nodded and wiped his tears. Although infrequent, this kind of abuse occurred until he was in his early teens. When I was in my mid-20s, I told my mother about this. I told her how I used to hit my brother and how I felt remorse. Hit was a euphemism, but I didn't have the balls to tell her I used to abuse him. She just said, "Really? I think he loves you very much, you're the only one he listens to." He would listen to me out of fear, I knew this. After leaving home at 18 I became much softer to my younger brother. I bought him birthday/seasonal gifts and tried to be as supportive as a brother could be. But I have never apologized to him. I am aware this is just an excuse, but I was abused by my father, and bullied at school for as long as I can remember. It was frequent and harsh, but the domestic abuse was mostly only towards me, which I am now grateful for. I just wish I didn't do the same to my brother. Although I am now physically bigger and stronger than my father, I still fear him, I still wouldn't dare question him. I can't imagine ever getting over this fear. I fear it may be the same case with my brother towards myself. I saw a dream today, where my little brother and I were both kids again and we were happily playing together as kids would. When I woke up I instinctively knew in the dream was a world where I was never abusive towards my brother, and he genuinely felt safe with me. I remember what I had done to him and the innocence I may have robbed him of. I cried a little and decided I needed to confess to random people online. Currently I am in my late 20s. He is now a college student. He is doing well from what I can tell. He is now a tall, muscular, smart, very good-looking gentleman. I am very proud of him. A few months ago, he called me and told me how his college life is going, and of his future dreams. I was elated. I was just happy he telling me about himself. This is the first and only time since I left home over a decade ago. To my brother who will never see this, I am sorry for abusing you. No need to forgive me for what I have done, but please forgive your brother for not having the balls to apologize. I love you, champ. To anyone who read this to the end, thank you, I needed this. Edit. First of all to the people who left. That's all for today. Please don't forget to like and subscribe.